Welcome back to another episode of the BigTime Strength Podcast. I believe this is episode 117. I forgot to check notes, but I'm pretty sure that's right. 117. It's a crew chat with Coach Preston Peterson and Coach Amanda Berg here. Really excited. We got some cool topics to get into. But first, let's talk about our sponsors. First off is, as if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know we're talking about TeamBuildr. And I mentioned on my last episode that TeamBuildr has been really clutch for me right now personally, as this is remote training time, especially at the collegiate level and basically everywhere, I guess. As athletes go home for break, we don't get to see a whole lot of them, but TeamBuildr allows us to program those workouts remotely, delivering them in real time, to where if we need to make changes, we can, and keep up with our athletes, message them, run reports, do all that kind of fun stuff. Allows us to do that in real time super quickly, as well as all the other features that they provide, including their new payment portals, is fantastic. So if you have questions, it's a great time to add on the TeamBuildr. If you are thinking about it, please check the show notes. Hewitt and his staff do an amazing job. We'd be happy to help you out. Our second sponsor is PowerLift. They are the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. They bring over 20 years of experience to the strength conditioning industry. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art facility in Jefferson, Iowa. They are proud to support all the coaches making the big time where they are at, and really appreciate PowerLift, a staple in our industry, tagging along with us here on the Big Time Strength Podcast. Really support or appreciate their support. Mike Richardson is our show contact. Please reach out to him if you have questions for their services. So, all right, let's get into today's show. I guess I want to go around the horn first, and I'll start. There's not a whole lot going on here right now. We are at the NCAA level when it's dead week and finals week. We can't really do much with our teams, and basically all of our off-season teams, it's all voluntary training. We kind of just open hours where athletes can come in. Combine that fact with the fact that, like most schools, our kids didn't come back after Thanksgiving, just a handful. So there's not a whole lot going on. So we're doing a lot of office work, not a whole lot of training, and even a couple of the teams that we are allowed to train from in season, they're kind of in and out of quarantine. So been kind of a crazy time, but my little baby girl, she's about ready to crawl, which is fun. So we have a lot of stuff going on the home front, which is great, but not a whole lot going on this end. Preston, how about you? What are you up to, man?
Well, at school, it's kind of fun, like getting in a swing of things and rolling and just like day in and day out. But it feels like so many of our kids, especially through the Thanksgiving time, were quarantined. So we had, I don't know, it was almost half of our student population was quarantined. Didn't mean that they had it, they were just quarantined. So a lot of the kids are back now. We're rolling. We had a 2-week break from winter sports. It was a school-wide winter break for extracurricular activities. We just started back this week. So I had some games, some girls basketball, boys basketball games, and this week we get to start with some wrestling. So excited. I think it's a great time for our kids to get back in, to rolling with stuff, because it was just kind of weird there for about a month where so many people were quarantined and then went right into this kind of a break. So starting to feel a little bit more normal, and our superintendent has hinted around that we will go back to like a regular schedule starting with semester 2, which is halfway through January, as long as the numbers are good. So we're just, everybody's praying for that, right? So things are good at school. Things are trending in the right way. So, and then at home, got the couple little guys that me and my wife are wrangling around, and right now I'm pretty sure she's trying to get both of them to get back to bed. So we'll see how that goes tonight.
Awesome. I remember those days, busy trying to put kids on to bed. So kind of awesome. Well, my life has been drastically done a 180. We were all in, and we are now on a shutdown. So we're virtual with school. We're on at least a 4-week shutdown from sports and extracurricular activities. And it was hard, but it surprisingly has gone fast. And as a coach, I actually made a commitment to try and stay out of the weight room. I think it was just so intense this fall. And I mean, we had talked about burnout a lot of times. So I was really close to there, burnout wise. And so I've really been trying to focus on self-care a little bit and taking care of just school stuff. And it's been good, but I am ready to get back. So I'm hoping next week they make the call that after Christmas we can start something up. So, but one thing that's been super exciting is we, with the high school athletes, you know, we've gone all directions now being virtual, but we started this amazing program this fall called Desire to Lead with Jeremy Boone. And a lot of people know Jeremy Boone for leadership stuff with athletic directors and strength coaches, but he did like a entirely, most of us got scholarships to do this for free, and it has been amazing, like transformational. So I just got off of, we had a celebration and of all the schools that did a huge community project, and it was just amazing to hear these next generation of kids and what they're doing. So some kids raised enough money for an entire funeral and then some for a fellow student. The women's shelters, food shelves, just amazing. So I'm just really proud of Jeremy, and I mean how much he has spread kind of his, you know, just basic leadership style with Leader Kit and Winning Leader Academy, and now into teenagers. So I'm stoked. I just got off the meeting with it, but I know he's having something in the spring. So high school strength coaches, reach out to him and listen, or reach out to him and ask questions. So Desire to Lead is what it's called. So yeah, pumped up about that. I think I'll start questions tonight with us and see a few of stories from your guys' either past or what you got going on. And I thought of this because Coach Pata, who you, Gage, you did an interview with him. And I remember Coach Pata, a key conversation that I had with Coach Pata that pretty much made me do the flip of wanting to go into strength and conditioning. And I was an athlete, and I remember he had just finished a workout, and I worked for him in the weight room, and he sat down next to me and he was drinking chocolate milk and eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And this was 20 years ago. So the concept of food as recovery had just started being something. And I remember we kind of got in a debate a little bit, and he was my coach and I was a student, and of course I was trying to tell him what I knew, and it was fun. It was kind of a debate, and we left it at that. And then the next day I got to work, and there was a note, and it was just saying, thank you so much for the conversation, and it's fun to hear people interested in strength and conditioning and moving into the future. And it was a key conversation. I was like, I want to do this. And I really think of it now, anytime I'll have a young coach that kind of thinks they know what they're doing, it's fun to go back to that conversation. So my question to you guys is, what have been some key conversations that have been like, this is it, this is my pivot point, and it just, everything became kind of clear with you?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think it's a great question. And I guess I want to tell two, so I'll try to keep them somewhat short. The first one would be the conversation that kind of got me in it. So you might, if you're, again, a longtime listener of our show, you might know it probably includes Joe Quinlan, because he got myself and Preston a big part of our careers. And I remember I had been a senior in college, and I was on the track to essentially be a middle school teacher back in my hometown and coach and do all that. And I decided I didn't want to do that. So I switched routes and enjoyed training and doing that type of thing. So I looked into this profession, and Joe was the person that I knew that was in it. And he did a lot of things to kind of open that door for me, and he didn't have to. I was taking his class actually at the time, and he said, why don't you come in or stop by the office at a certain time and we'll talk. And I remember we stood outside the weight room. There's these doors that separate kind of the weight room to what it's called the gray area, where he does a lot of his warm-ups and stuff. Doesn't matter. But we stood out there and we talked, and it seemed like, looking back on it, it was probably 10 minutes, but it seemed like it was an hour. And, he told me just about the profession, what he does, what he loves about it. and just, I guess I just left that conversation just seeing how the impact that he had on the kids, which I already knew that, but just that he took the time out of his super busy day to spend a little bit of time talking to me about the profession. And, he basically said, you come in and work for me and work your butt off, and I'll do anything I can to help you out. And that's exactly what he did. He helped me get an internship at Mizzou, which kind of the rest is history as far as my profession has gone, and continues to help me every single day since. So, no, really just that conversation, just the fact that he took that time to talk to me when he has, again, a million other things going on was super special. And I'll never forget that. And then I guess the next story I have is this just more of a coaching. It's not even a conversation. I remember I was doing my internship at Mizzou. I was an intern, and every intern was in charge of essentially like a rack. And I was at the racks where a bunch of the younger guys were, and they were doing APRE. And I remember the head staff said in prep for this day is like, hey, don't let these kids go over a certain number. And very strictly, do not let them go over a certain number on their APRE. And I was watching this dude squat, and he just absolutely blew this thing up. I don't remember what the number was. Say it was 8. He hit rep 8, and you watch that, and like, man, he could have got 8 more. I mean, his numbers were off or something. I don't know what the deal was, but I knew that you're not supposed to let this guy go over 8. And so the athlete was asking me, can I go again? Can I go again? He wanted to max again because he knew he could do more. And I said, no, you can't go again. These are the rules. So then he goes and asks one of the assistants above me, 3-4 racks down, if he can goes again. And the assistant said, he looks at me and he said, Coach, do you think he could have got more? And I said, yeah, but the rule is 8. He said, no, use your coaching eyes. And those few words there said, use your coaching eyes, I think about all the time, where like I had these rules or like what it's supposed to be, but like there's so much gray area. And yeah, he was supposed to only get 8, but something was messed up where you let that kid flourish like he's supposed to, understand the overall goal of the situation, and know that particular situation, they said don't let them go over 8 because they knew that there's going to be kids that started to look like crap at 7 that were going to try to force out 4 more crappy reps. But that wasn't this situation. So just the whole, like, remember your coaching eyes thing, like, it's not like a super impactful thing for me, but like, I don't know. I just think about that all the time, and I'll never forget that moment in the heat of things where that coach looked at me in the eyes and say, use your coaching eyes. So anyway, that's my 2 stories.
Love it.
I guess my story, if I'm next here, I guess my story is, I don't know, it's probably a flow. It's more of like a timeline of happenings. But in high school, I loved being in the weight room because I saw it was like my ticket to go on to the next level, or my ticket to be the best that I could be, or my ticket to work extremely hard, and then all of it would pay off in some way, some form or fashion, right? So super thankful for both my dad and Dan Christensen. Those were the 2 guys that were in the weight room every single morning of my junior high and high school career, that I knew if I was going to be in there, they were also going to be in there. And it was just pretty cool. It was like before, like a strength coach was actually a strength coach. Like it was like a weight room supervisor almost type thing. But man, I looked up to those 2 people a ton, and it wasn't like they're big weight room guys. They saw it as means to an end, right? They saw it like for sport performance, and it totally is, right? Like that's what the weight room is for. But like that was something that I just enjoyed the weight room on its own too. So that was kind of the start of that. And then once I got to college, kind of in my mind was like, I wanted to be a college football coach. Like that was what I wanted to do when I got older. And it always had been. And then I started to see, going when I was in a college football program, that the amount of time that I'm with my position coach or my coordinator or my head coach was like almost nothing compared to how much time you are around the strength coach. And I started to think about like, well, the reason why I wanted to do this was because I wanted to impact student athletes' lives, right? And no doubt you can do that through your sport coach. And I think sport coaches have a huge impact. But I just saw, and like Gage kind of makes fun of us now that we say Joe's name like every other episode, but I just saw how much of an impact Joe had on everybody around him and how much he just cared for his student athletes. And so like, you know, my wheels started turning. It's like, man, maybe I want to be a college strength coach, not a college football coach. And so that kind of started happening throughout my first semester. And then it was like winter break or something of my first semester. And Joe's just like, I don't know. Once you meet Joe, you just be like, man, some of the things that he does is just a little weird, or goes out of his way just a little bit too much to help people. You know, like it's just not normal sometimes. And he wanted to help. He wanted to help my dad out. So he's like, hey, Preston, you want to load up stuff? We'll take a few bands and we will take a few other equipment things, and we'll just head to your weight room. And so it's an hour and a half away. And I think it was close to winter break or something like that. And he drives me all the way back home. And we take Dad and Coach Christensen, the other guy I was talking about, and we just take him through a bunch of stuff that he likes to use and implement and just help high school strength coaches out. And I was just like, this is crazy. Like I felt like he cared so much that he wanted to help me and he wanted to help my dad. I'm like, this is so cool. I want to do stuff like this, right? I want to help out as many people as I can. And then you get to know Joe, and Joe's who he is, and no doubt, but it's because he's spurred on by his wife, Kelly Quinlan, who does all the same stuff and even more. Like if you know Northwest Missouri State athletics, you know Kelly Quinlan, maybe just as much or more than Joe Quinlan, because she's just the person that everybody goes to for advice, help, injury, just like everything. She's that person. And so those people have just like impacted my life so much that that's what perpetuates or moves me forward, or why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. All of that kind of just tied into one thing. So you narrow it down to one conversation, no way. But maybe the moment was when he drove me back to my hometown and showed my high school strength coaches, you know, like that he wanted to help. I thought that was pretty cool.
Love it. I noticed between all of our stories too, connection, right? Coaches just going above and beyond and connecting with us. So so impactful. Love it. Love it. What do you think your question is tonight, Preston?
Oh, so my question, and I got a couple here. One of them is probably more down the connection path that we were just talking about, but let's move into some strength and conditioning first, and then we can move back to connection. But what are your key performance indicators that you all use to make sure you're on the right path? And this kind of stems from, like Gage was talking about his challenge that he uses, and Amanda was talking about her challenge that she uses, and you know, all those challenge scores were tied into things that they do on the regular anyway, right? Like they were just putting scores to them and stuff, and it just got me really thinking, what really matters in the weight room? And you know, you hear it all the time, what you measure matters, all that type of stuff, right? But if you're really going to say across the board for you know, like at least my mindset, and I think Coach Berg and Coach Rosier's mindset is like, how do you make an athlete better? Doesn't matter really the sport as much as how are we going to make an athlete better? At least at the high school level, that's totally what I look at, because we have so many multi-sport athletes. And so that started me down a rabbit hole of what I wanted to track, how I was going to track it, what it would look like. Because up to that point, I had my certain things, but I'm starting to expand more and more and more. And I don't know if more is better, but it at least gives the kids an idea of, like, these are things that are super important to athleticism. We're going to keep on tracking them. So now it like expands the program a little bit. So what are your guys' things that you like?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything super groundbreaking with this, but you know, I think it would all tie back into the Iron Cardinal, which I discussed on a couple of podcasts previously. And we do those. It's those four we do with all of our sports. It's front squat for the most part. We do with all of our sports. A vert jump, sprint, 10-yard sprint. Just from a static start. I know some people do flying tens. I haven't done those yet. I think Preston, maybe you guys do flying tens. but we're just doing a static start, like a 2-point start, like a wide receiver stance, 10-yard sprint, and then med ball throw. Those are something we do for all of our sports, but we do like an upper body strength movement usually as well, whether it's a bench press or a barbell or dumbbell bench press. But if I had to say my main KPIs, I chose those 4 for the Iron Cardinal because those are ones usually I'm more interested in. We track other things, but I think those 4 really kind of encapsulate, is that a word, encapsulate? Kind of wrap up, I guess, just the ones that I've seen really, like, your good athletes are good at them. The only one I don't have much of a change of direction type KPI. I used to do pro agility, but I kind of moved away from pro agility as it's changed of direction. It's not agility, whatever. I don't have that in my KPIs. I've kind of gotten away with that a little bit, but I guess just maybe side note off of this question, I guess, we're talking strength conditioning, but something I look at too is like, are we making an impact far as like their behavior? And one simple thing I do with that is just like their compliance within like filling out their wellness surveys. That's an easy one that I can do. And like, are they showing up on time, stuff like that. So hoping that we haven't filled out wellness surveys through TeamBuildr to where hopefully we can get them to do those things. And because we've struggled with it in the past, where if more and more are doing it, maybe we're a little bit more disciplined, maybe we're buying into little details a little bit more. Maybe if we're having less lates and less misses, stuff like that, maybe we are adding in more maybe we're moving the needle in that realm a little bit as well. So I don't know if you call that a KPI, but it's something I do track and look at.
Okay. Love it. And do you adjust anything based, like what time frame do you usually go through as far as where it would adjust your training based on scores you're getting from them?
So like when I get their testing scores, what do I adjust from there? So again, from like the Iron Cardinal, what we're doing is leveling off our kids based off of their scores, not just Iron Cardinal scores, but their testing in general. So I'll look at just the overall team, for example, and say, hey, they're terrible at their vert or they're terrible or whatever, and just see if we need to adjust training from that. But what I'll also do is I've got a profile document to where every time we have a testing, whether it's fall, winter, or spring, we update every athlete's profile so we can see whatever, say we're testing in 8 different things. We might not test all 8 every single period, but I have a running profile where I can see where the athletes are improving in each one. So I can see over that 4-year span in one snapshot where they are or not good at stuff. So what I'll do after those testing periods is go through there and look and level them off very simply as like our advanced athletes, if you want to call them that. We'll probably do a little bit more advanced type training with that, maybe some French contrast, stuff like that, where the athletes that still just aren't cutting it from a strength standpoint will stick with the basic 5-3-1s, APRE, stuff like that. So is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Okay. You're just able to adjust your training based on the
Yeah.
data that you're getting.
Yeah.
Love it. I feel like at the high school level, I'm really not there yet with, numbers relating to how I'm adjusting my training. My mission is move well, then move strong, then move fast, and then, move for life. So keep them healthy. So I'd say my performance indicators go a lot more with movements now. So how well that they're hinging, and with TeamBuildr, what's so nice is you can put in, they call them tags in TeamBuildr, but pretty much a level of an exercise. So for instance, our kids will start out with a kettlebell squat. And so a performance indicator for me would be how, if they're, we have a rubric for them, and if their back is staying strong, if their chest is staying out, how their feet are moving, if they're able to hinge at their ankles. And if we have those, then they can move up in movement. So then we go into a goblet squat, then we go into a front squat, and they're not going to be able to back squat, until usually around the like varsity level almost sometimes. So I'd say that would be a big one for us, as movements as indicators. And measuring wise, I've really started doing but stuff that's easy to get a whole group through. So a 10-yard sprint, broad jump, and vertical. And I like to look at those numbers and see if they're consistently matching season to season and year to year in order to adjust the training a little bit.
I was trying to look through, and I don't know if I should even bring it up because that might be a misquote, but I was looking through, or I saw something Michael Boyle was saying on Twitter, and he was just talking about like overall, like your biggest KPI should be consistency. Like, and I might butcher that. But like, I just started listening to you guys. I'm like, you know what? I just saw this on Twitter. And so if he didn't say that, I'm sorry, Michael Boyle. But basically, the whole thought process is if you can do consistency over the long term, all the other things are going to take care of itself if you have some sound programming, right? But like so many people, especially when I'm looking through stuff, it's like so many of my athletes, if they would just be consistent from freshman to senior year, just year round, every time that we have an opportunity to train, basically that's outside of like 4 off weeks throughout the year, then they should be in there, right? Like they should be going. And if they do that, everything's going to take care of itself. Like then we start to look at what are the things that are a little bit more, I don't know, life-changing, I guess. I don't know. So, something that's a little bit more culture-based, I guess. Those are the things that I really enjoy anyway. But I think it stems from when Gage was talking about how he makes sure that they have their wellness check. So I was like, oh man, I think I just saw something about that not too long ago. But like making sure that they're on time, making sure that they have their wellness check done. Just like those little things over and over and over. It's like bench press, yeah, great, whatever. Like 10-yard dash, great, whatever. But I mean, like over and over, what's going to be the best things? So not to run down that too much, but I really think that was something that was good. That fake Mike Boyle quote, I'm not sure. So how do you connect with your athletes, and what are some simple strategies that you use daily or weekly? That's my next question. What do you guys do?
I'll go first because I know Amanda's got some really good stuff on this. So, a lot of coaches would say, you got to talk to them, you got to ask them about their day, you got to ask them about something outside of strength conditioning. I think that's 100%. Those are really good tactics and strategies. But something I've been trying to do more recently, again, maybe to answer this question a little bit differently, is to continue to connect with my athletes after they've graduated and have a strategy with that. So whether that's messaging some former athletes, a few a week, something like that, just to try to maintain that connection to guys that, and our women who we built relationships with, but then they move on and now they're out in the adult world now with real jobs and all that, and just try to maintain that connection with them. So even if it's just shooting them a message and saying, hey, just thought of you, saw someone squatting today and reminded me of how terrible you were at squat, just wanted to see how you're doing, something like that. Just message them and just try to make that connection. Because I think that's something, maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of coaches probably don't have a strategy for that, of maintaining that connection after they leave. Because I think we all just, we got many more athletes coming in and we were super busy and everything, but I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional about maintaining that connection even after they leave William Jewell. But as far as our athletes here, I try to make a point on connecting with everyone every day, and I'm not perfect at that by any means. I have a much more room to grow, certainly in that area. But Amanda, why don't you take it away, because I know you got some good ideas.
No, I love yours, because I think it's important to stay in contact with them, because sometimes the things that you say probably doesn't click in their mind until they're long gone. They're like, oh, you were right, coach. So it's nice you can connect with them a little bit about that. This is something I've been definitely working on so much. I talk a lot about that. I love working with Jeremy Boone, but he says connection trumps communication. And I can, at the beginning of my career, I could make sure I was clear with every direction as can be, and it didn't mean anything until I really focused on connecting with kids. So, a couple of things now is I have a rule that I can't talk to them about technique or anything unless I've talked to them about something different than strength and conditioning. So that just makes me think about it a little bit if I see them. That doesn't mean I don't go tell somebody else, hey, make sure you check them on their form or something like that. But that's been a big one. And I think leaning into harder conversations, kind of truthful conversations, have built stronger relationships than just fluff, asking how their day was. Leaning into like, do you really think that you're giving your best effort right now, has led to some hard conversations. Or do you really think you're living life right now? Taking care of yourself. And that's built, I'd say, the closest relationships. Just finding a nice way to call kids out on what needs to change. So those have been leaning into the tension a little bit. And then just meeting athletes where they're at now. I always used to want so much for athletes, and I ended up disappointed in them so much. And now just kind of thinking there's no judgment, from me, and I'm going to meet them where they're at, because maybe they're not ready for what I'm expecting of them right now. So those have been a few ways that I'm really working on it a lot, because it's been hard to, before I spent so much time giving directions, and now I really work on not doing as much. So those are a few tools that I use.
That's awesome. I got those, put them down now. They're in my notes. I like those. Gage, I think that's important to connect later on, and I need to do a better job of that. But I also always love this Christmas break time because we have so many athletes that come back, and they want to use the weight room, but at the same time, like, I want them to use the weight room because I want to catch up with them. I want to see how they're doing. I want to see what life is like now for them. And so, like, this is kind of a fun time for me too, because that's the time when everybody comes back, and that's cool. And then some of the things that just made me think about it, Amanda, you were just talking about leaning into those hard conversations, and I'd call him probably my mentor. He's the boys basketball coach here at Mount Vernon, and he talks about the hardest conversations are the ones that we need to have. Like, there's a reason that they're hard, and that's the ones that you need to do. Like, that's the ones that you're called to have. And if you are passing those up, you're really leaving stuff out on the table. And I thought about that. It's like, man, you know what? There's a reason I need to have this conversation. And it, like, if there's purpose behind it, then I got to get it done, and so, but on the flip side of that, kids want accountability. They want to be held accountable. I found that over and over and over. Like, our kids, when I call them out on something, but like, we have to have a connection first, but when I call them out on something and I let them know that this is the standard, they're like, you know what, you're right. And if I do that across the board, like, I just had a kid come into the weight room and he had a tank top on that was like almost nothing, right? Like, he cut it down way short, and this is a rule that we don't do that, right? You can do a cutoff, but it's basically, it has to be like right around your arms. And everybody knew that it was wrong. He knew it was wrong, but he was kind of waiting for me to call him out. And I would say he's like one of the guys that's always in the weight room. Like, he's a gym rat. Like, he's always around me. And I said, hey, Travis. And they're like, oh, like, and so if Travis listens to this podcast, he's going to laugh. But I call him over and I say, hey, bud, you know the deal, right? And he goes, yes. And he was kind of upset that I called him out, like that. I said, if I don't hold the line with you, I can't hold the line with everybody else, and he goes, yeah, I know. And he goes and gets a different cutoff on, actually, but one that fits our code. And everybody's just like giving him a little bit of jabs and a hard time and everything. But everybody wanted him to be held accountable. He's kind of one of those alpha guys in the class. Everybody wanted me to hold him accountable. And when it all happened, it was like everything was right in the weight room, like everything was fine then, so I thought that was kind of funny. That was just this past week. So that makes me laugh a little bit. These are my three, and these are the ones that I've used a lot. And not to say that I steal everything from Northwest, but this is something that I stole. If he knows it or not, this is what he does. And I just made sure that I do it. I say every athlete's name, every single day. So if you say their name, there's a connection. For whatever reason, you say somebody's name, you connect with them. When you say an athlete's name, they know that you know who they are, okay? Physical contact, which is different with COVID. Right now we bump shoes and we knock elbows, but like physical contact, and it sounds weird, maybe this isn't good for podcast, but I touch every athlete, right? So every single athlete, it used to be a fist bump or a high five or whatever, but physical contact. And then the last one was a daily question. And the reason why we do a daily question, and I've talked about this, I think on the podcast before, I say, is a hot dog a sandwich? And then they have to defend their answer. Or it's easy on Mondays. How was your weekend? What was the coolest thing you did? You know, like that's almost every single Monday. That's what we start out with. But then it's like, are you Colgate or Crest? Are you pancakes or waffles? You know, like just that type of stuff. And the reason why I do the daily question is because when real questions are going to be asked, like, hey, how you doing? They feel comfortable around me, and they can say, you know, I got a lot of stuff going on today. Then I can have those conversations because we talk about toothpaste and waffles, you know, and that's something that I think has gone a long way, and that stems from everything that I learned at Northwest, just kind of put into a checklist for me. But I like doing those things, and I think the kids expect it too. Because if I don't come out with the daily question, they're like, "Hey, what's going on here?"
That's great. Used to do that with some of our teams as well when we can. And yeah, the tough part of that is I on the spot sometimes have a hard time coming up with new questions. So I'll ask them a question like, "No, we already answered that." I was like, "Gosh dang it!" All right.
You know what a great one is, Gage? Then what should our daily question be today? And then you get like 10 more answers.
Yeah, there we go.
For the next 10 days. So it's perfect.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in for the crew chat. I am going to throw a curveball. I'm going to do one more question that I'll make these guys answer. And I'll share first so you have time to think. Best Christmas gift you've ever received or given, whichever you want to answer it. Mine is, I'll do best and worst. Mine is my dad was a big no video games guy growing up, you know, for the kids. And my grandma got us a PlayStation one year. Was really excited about it. And then my worst gift was a great gift, but turned out badly for me is I got one of those Rosier scooters. And my first trip down the driveway at my grandma's house, I broke my arm on it. So haven't been back on it since. Spent the rest of Christmas in the ER. So that's my story. Now you guys go.
I was in 6th grade and I got a alarm clock, and I was so pumped for an alarm clock. I don't know what the deal is, right? But I was so pumped for an alarm clock. I still have the same alarm clock. It sits on my dresser, and I don't know if it's the best or not, but man, I was pumped at the time, and it's got some longevity to it. So that has to be my best one, but maybe we'll pair it up, and it could be the worst one too. I don't know, Gage.
It said you have to be a strength coach, your alarm clock. That's good.
It's my safety right now. I wake up to my watch, but it's my, and then I have my phone, and it's my third backup. So, you know.
Good old alarm clock. Love it. I think my best and worst are the same present, because when I was young, there was a big present under the tree, and I wanted Doc Martens so bad. And Doc Martens are coming back, so it's awesome to see. But they're big, huge, clunky, chunky shoes. And it was a big box. I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet those are high top Doc Martens, and which were probably around $200, you know, back in 1993. And I was like, I cannot believe they got these for me. And I opened it up on Christmas, and I'm from Minnesota, and my family's big into ice fishing. And it was these huge, clunky Iceman boots. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my poor dad, who had no idea that, you know, Doc Martens, that I even wanted them. My poor dad was so excited about them. And I ended up having those things for literally, I think until I was in my mid-20s. And he bought them so big for me. So it ended up being a very valuable present. And I think later on in life, I was very appreciative for my dad that he did not spoil me at Christmas. And I had to go buy my own Doc Martens. So
that's awesome. That's a great gift.
Yeah.
You guys have anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I just hope they were doing this in the holiday season. So different type of Christmas this year. And coaches, you should be, we thank you. Like coaches have adapted this year, my gosh. So thank you for listening to us this year. It's been awesome.
Same. Nice.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, safe. Like Coach said, probably different this year, but hope you still find time to enjoy it. Please share the show. We don't ask enough for likes and comments and subscribes and all that fun stuff. But if you enjoyed it, please do those things for us. We'd really appreciate it. But until next time, we will see you soon. Thank you.